Well, alright. Well, you've seen me review the NV100 from OneLeaf, the NV100 Plus, the NV400, and now today we have the NV500 day-night scope. Alright, so I don't want to bore you through this video, and I know a lot of, especially Americans, will make comments even on a 5-minute video, you talk too much. But you need to talk quite a bit sometimes when you're introducing something like this, especially when there's so much going on with a scope like this. So I'll try not to, again, bore you to death, but I want to do this in kind of a quick, timely manner and not make it too long. I don't want it to be a 30-minute video. We'll try to keep it as short as possible. Just to mention, everything with this is fairly self-explanatory, and by that I mean when you're setting it up and you're going through the drop-down menu, you know, it kind of gives you a description of what to do in order to set up that specific thing. And if it gets a little bit too complex, you could always go to the manual that's provided and take a look at that. And again, I won't go through the whole drop-down menu because it's extensive, and a lot of it you won't even probably change. You'll just kind of blow through. So what's the point of going through every single little thing? Again, most of it's self-explanatory anyways. Okay, so let's do this. What's in the box, right? Obviously, I already have the scope mounted here. So we have the scope, we have the range finder, which is right here, and then we have the IR illuminator on top. So those obviously come in the box. Now, just so you know, there are some things that are optional, and the range finder is one of them. All right, so in the box, you get this little kind of doohickey here with a little cleaning cloth in it. The instruction manual, again, pretty good size. It's very well done, just so you know. So it makes things fairly easy. We'll have things like USB-C cable, which you use to charge the actual scope itself. This particular one on the NV500, it's the only one that does this. It has an internal battery, so you charge it by USB-C, just so you know. On the IR illuminator, it has a battery in here you could remove, and then there's a charger included to charge it in this. It has things like the caps, right? It has the daytime tube to install to reduce the amount of light that comes through. It has this rear cap that's on here. And depending on what you get, because again, you could buy this particular scope with variances, so it's just going to depend on what you decide you want with the scope when you purchase it. It's going to depend on what's in the box, but you get this kind of cool little nice carrying case here for it. I got this with 2 lenses, and you can get them with either 1 lens, you can get them with 2 lenses, you can get them with 3 lenses. Right now there's primarily 3 lenses. They have a 4th lens that's coming, and so I got the 2x lens and the 4x lens. Some of the lenses have variable apertures, and if you're not a photographer, you probably don't know why that makes a difference. And here's what makes a difference. On the variable aperture lenses, you can think of it like your pupil of your eye, right? This is what I teach people when I'm teaching photography. Think of it like the pupil of your eye. When you're inside, your pupil gets large, right? Because it's dark inside and it wants to let in more light. When you step out into the bright sunlight, your pupil closes up and gets small. Why? Because it's trying to reduce the amount of light that's coming in through your eye because it's too much light. So it's reducing that, it's restricting the amount of light. Well, these variable aperture lenses do the same thing. You can control by opening it up or closing it how much light is coming through. That's the primary reason for this aperture, is just that. You're reducing or increasing the amount of light that comes through this, and that will help in very dark situations or very bright situations, either or. So again, that's just very quickly an explanation of that. On some of the other lenses, this is the 4x lens. This was the 2x lens. The 4x lens does not have a variable aperture, and so it's a fixed aperture. What aperture that's fixed at, I don't know. Don't have a clue. So, but it's fixed, whatever the situation is. Now, in order to help reduce the amount of light that's coming in on a very bright day, that's what this tube is for right here. You put that on during the daytime, and that restricts the amount of light that's coming through, so your image sensor is not overwhelmed by the amount of light that's hitting it. All right, what are we going to talk about next? Okay, so we're still talking about what's in the box. The rangefinder is optional, right? What size lenses you get are optional. Again, this is not optional. The IR illuminator. Now, this IR illuminator, it has 3 different power levels. So every time you push this button, you'll see one of these 3 lights light up. The first one lights up, it's on the lowest power. Second one, obviously the second highest power. Third one, the highest power. And from there, you can zoom the beam in and out as well to make it wider or narrower. Now, just so you know again, the narrower you make the beam, typically the brighter it will be at any given distance. When you make the beam wider, you're dispersing the light more. When you're refining and controlling the beam in a tighter beam, you're increasing the intensity of that beam because it's now confined to a very small pattern going straight out. It's not dispersed as much. So that kind of gives you an idea how this works. The farther the subject is away that you're going to be looking at, the tighter you're going to want that, right? So it could reach out. Now this says, I think, up to 437 yards, if I'm not mistaken, is what this IR light will hit. And so at that 437 yards, you're probably going to need that beam as narrow as possible in order to reach all the way out there and illuminate your target. Now for closer targets, you would probably want a wider beam. I think it works better at a closer distance, and by closer distance, I'm 50 yards, something like that. And so it's obviously depending on what you're hunting or what you're going to be shooting. Again, I mean, you could be shooting large animals like deer or elk, or you could be shooting small animals like rats, rabbit, raccoon, things like that. Those may be closer, especially rats, right? If you're ratting, typically you're going to be shooting fairly close, 30, 40, 50 yards. I mean, that would be considered close. Again, it also depends, obviously, are you using an air gun or are you using a high-power rifle, right? Because obviously you're not going to be hunting rats or mice with a high-power rifle. You're going to be using a small caliber or a air gun. Now, air guns, obviously, in this day and age, are very capable of taking large animals. And again, hunting regulations are different state by state. You have to look and see what you're allowed to do at nighttime versus daytime, and all of that. That's up to you. Coyote, most states, I think that where it's legal, you can hunt those at nighttime. That's a pretty good sized target. And so again, you have to take that all into consideration. Now, the lenses, let me just talk a little bit more about lenses again. There's different power lenses, 2 power, 4 power, 6 power, and I think they're coming out with an 8 power lens. There's also digital zoom, if I'm not mistaken, it goes up to 13 times digital zoom. And so again, you have 2 power, 2x, 4x, and 6x lenses. And so you may be a little bit confused about what lenses to get. So I'll talk about that for a second. Why would you want a 2 power lens versus a 6 power lens, right? Here's what to think about. The power of the lens creates a very sharp good, clear image, right? So I got the 2 power and 4 power, being that I'm probably going to be using this for things that are within 50 yards, but some of them can be on the smaller side. So I got the 2 and 4 power, but I also can use the up to 13 times digital zoom. But here's something you have to think about. Whatever size lens you get, that will always be nice and sharp and clear. If you're using the digital zoom at the lowest power. But what happens is, as you're increasing digital zoom, the image will start to deteriorate the higher power you go. Because what it's doing is it's using a smaller and smaller portion of the image sensor. So that reduces the amount of pixels that you're using the higher power digital zoom you go. So by using a higher power lens, there's an offset where you don't necessarily need to be using so much digital zoom, which is keeping the overall image clearer and sharper, especially when you're recording, which this does very, very well. So I have a couple examples that I'll post the links to below for both daytime and nighttime use, and it kind of will give you an idea of how this scope works, and the distance that I'm going to be shooting at in either one of those videos is just at 32 yards. Again, this is just an example of how this works. I want to do a couple quick videos on daytime, nighttime use, and so I did that just as a kind of a first introductory look at how this scope works at both daytime and nighttime at 32 yards. And I'll be doing more of these. I'll probably be setting up at night. I have a backyard range that goes out to 50 yards. I'll be doing probably some testing with that too. But there's so much involved with the scope. I mean, again, you could talk forever and you can make 100 different videos just covering everything. All right, so that's the basics of this. So what you do is this. Again, there's a button up top here in which when you push that and hold it down, the pop-up menu or drop-down menu comes up. There is a power button on and off here. And again, as you start to scroll through the different things in the drop-down menu, again, when you press on them, it'll give you a little description on how to adjust whatever it is you're going to do. Such as, there's 5 different color options for the reticle, right? There are multiple different reticles that you can choose. There is first focal plane and second focal plane options that you could use. There is, the quality of the recording you could adjust. I mean, there's a ton of things in here, and again, I don't want to go through every single one of them because you'll just be bored. It's fairly self-explanatory. If you have a question, feel free to post a question. I am really, really good at responding to questions. Not everybody is. So usually if somebody posts a comment or a question, I'll respond to that fairly quickly. A day, 2 days at the most, but usually within a day I will. All right, so again, go through the drop-down menu, set things up. One of the other things you have an option to do on there is the one-shot zero, which I highly recommend. It comes in handy, very much it comes in handy, though I wouldn't say it's one-shot zero, especially with air guns. It will get you extremely close. So, you do still have to, set up at different ranges, such as I'll usually start my zeroing in at 15 yards, and then I'll move it out to 30 yards. Once I'm within that range, I know from there I can fine-tune for greater distances than that. But, you just want to get on the bullseye at closer range, and then, you could adjust more easily as you go out farther and farther ranges. So the one-shot zero, the concept of it is fantastic. I would say, listen, it probably takes you 2 or 3 times to really, at least on air guns, to get it kind of zeroed where it's, you're hitting pretty close to the area. of the bullseye. And then from there, you're just going to fine tune on your own. Whether you need to adjust vertical or horizontal, you could fine tune from there. But again, it gets you started very, very quickly, and it's a great thing to have on there. You're looking through the screen, you're making all these adjustments. You'll also see the range finder. You do need to make an initial adjustment on that as well, in which you need to set this one point to this blinking little section, and once you move it to that point, then you know that that's where you need to put the range finder spot on whatever your target is, and then it'll give you the proper range of that. There's a lot of information that's up on the screen. Again, it gives you information on the angle of your gun, so to speak. Up and down, it'll tell you what the angle is of that. It'll tell you right and left if you're at an angle. That comes to importance, especially angles left to right, if your gun's leaning one way or the other, because that could throw off your zero, right? So you always want to hold your rifle so it is exactly level left and right. Obviously, you need to adjust up and down for your target, but left and right will then give you making sure that you're exactly zero left and right will then ensure that you're keeping your zero set properly, because if you're holding the rifle too far to the right or too far to the left, it will throw off your zero and you won't be hitting zero anymore. Or bullseye, you'll be hitting off left or right, and you won't be questioning why is it hitting left or right, what's going on with the scope. No, it's because you're not holding the rifle level. And so again, that may not seem like a big deal, and it's not as big of a deal sometimes with certain velocities and certain distances. It becomes more of a factor the farther out your target is, and also the lower velocity bullets or pellets or slugs, the lower velocity, it'll be affected more also. So that's a very important thing. Up here is where you adjust to focus, right? And depending on whatever distance you're shooting at, if you have it sighted in for, say, 30 yards or 50 yards, and you adjust this focus for that distance, if you're shooting closer, you'll have to readjust that focus. If you're shooting farther, you'll have to readjust this focus to make sure that whatever distance you're going to be shooting at, you get a nice clear picture. Again, especially if you're recording and you want to see that video afterwards. Back here, as in most different scopes that you get, you could adjust for your eyes. So if your eyes are a little bit bad like mine, you could adjust to make sure that when you're looking through it and you're seeing the reticle and then all the information that's on the screen, that's nice and clear as well. What else from there? Again, there's so much going on with the scope, I could talk forever. Starvis image sensor, right, is inside this. It works fantastic. If you look at the videos that I shot, very, very clear, nice picture, 4K, 120 FPS, which is important if you're going to show slow motion shots, things like that. Shooting at something fast like 120 FPS will make sure that when you slow it down that the picture is a lot clearer, and the frame rate is such that you're seeing the trajectile, especially on an air gun, going through the air, and then whatever you're hitting, if you're shooting at a bottle filled with water, say, when it hits that, the explosion of that little bottle that you're hitting or whatever, you will see that explosion much more clear, and it just makes for really good slow motion effects shooting at that fast a frame rate. If you're not shooting at that fast a frame rate, if you're shooting at 30 FPS, that's great for just normal shooting. And again, you could decide whether you want to shoot at 4K, full HD, whatever. I think there's a 2K option also. You could pick that. And again, depending on a lot of things, you will use each of those based upon what you're going to be doing with the video that you're going to be using, right? Okay, so that's that. What else do we have to say about this? I think that's the main portion of it. Again, this scope works very well both in the daytime and nighttime. And again, having the ability to record what you're shooting at is just great, especially for us guys who make videos. You know, you don't have to set up more cameras. You could just use the internal camera. It also has sound recording as part of this as well. So not only are you getting the video recording, but you're getting sound recording. And both of the examples for daytime and nighttime shooting that I'm going to be listing below, those are both recorded sound from the internal mic. And that is very good quality as well. So that, again, that's important. The video quality is important, and it's very good video quality. And the sound quality is very important. It's got great sound quality as well. All right, again, I could talk forever and ever because there's so much going on with this scope, but I don't want to bore you. I just want to hit right now the main things that are going on with this scope, so you have a basic idea. The first things you're going to want to do when you turn on this scope and you go through your menus is obviously the one-shot zero. You know, you're going to want to set what reticle style you want to use. You're going to want to set whether you want it to be first focal plane or second focal plane. Again, first focal plane is that the reticle lines will increase in size as you zoom in. Second focal plane is that the reticle size will always stay the same size no matter if you're zooming in or out. Those two things for sure you're going to want to set. You're going to want to set probably the video quality to make sure that, you know, if you start recording, that you have the quality set where it needs to be. And that's pretty much the main thing. You know, again, it's all self-explanatory. Go through and look through them. I think you'll find, and most people will find, that it'll be easy to go through. All right, so that's all I wanted to say for now. Again, I'm sure we'll be doing many more videos on this. But for today, that's going to be it. I don't want to overwhelm you. And until next time, shoot lots, be safe, and we will see you again soon. Take care now.